In 2009, Abby Johnson was director of the Planned Parenthood Clinic in Bryan, Texas. Then, one day she quit. Not just quit, joined the Coalition for Life. Before long, she was protesting abortions right outside the very clinic she used to run.
For 8 years, Abby Johnson volunteered, worked, and eventually served as the director of a Planned Parenthood clinic in Texas. She believed she was helping women in crisis, until one day she witnessed an event that would cause her to cross the lifeline, challenge her values, and change the course of her life. Unplanned is Abby's personal account of her journey in the life versus rights debate.
Please welcome to the 700 Club the author of the book Unplanned, Abby Johnson. Great to have you here,
Thank
Abby.
you for having me.
Before we talk about why you left the Planned Parenthood Clinic, let's talk about how did you get involved with that in the first place?
Well, I actually got involved as a volunteer in college. I was a student at Texas A&M, and I just happened to run into a Planned Parenthood booth while I was walking through campus one day. And, you know, people asked me what attracted me to Planned Parenthood and that booth, and it was honestly, it was drowning in hot pink, and that was my favorite color. And so it just caught my attention, and I walked over to the booth, and they said some things that made sense to me because I had never really considered the pro-life or pro-choice debate.
Had you grown up with a feeling about it one way or the other? I mean, did your family have any particular stance on it?
My family, I grew up pro-life. My family was pro-life. I remember in high school saying I was pro-life. But, you know, if somebody would have put me up to a debate, I would have lost.
You hadn't really thought the thing through.
No.
Yeah, well, I think that's true for a lot of people. In your book, you write, never trust a decision you don't want your mother to know about. What secrets were hiding in your own life?
In 2000, I had my first abortion procedure, and I think that was probably what prompted so much enthusiasm behind my involvement with Planned Parenthood.
Abby, when you went through that, what was involved in the decision-making? What did you think? Did you have any remorse? Did you ever consider it? Or was it just the easiest, most convenient thing to do at the time?
You know, I've heard a lot of people talk about, you know, when they found out they were pregnant or you know, when you find out any kind of difficult thing that happens in your life or tragedy in your life. And I remember when I read that pregnancy test and I came out and I told my fiance at the time, I've heard people say, oh, my mind was racing and there were so many thoughts going through my mind, but I just remember my mind being blank and just thinking, oh, what am I going to do now?
How did I get into this?
You know, and I didn't know what to do. And I was looking to him for answers. And I don't think that abortion really crossed my mind at that time. Yeah. But I thought, oh, my gosh, I can't tell my parents. How am I going to tell my parents? What's going to happen? You know, I want to go back to school.
Well, and pregnancy is pretty, yes. The last part of that, I think, for a lot of young women, it's very life-interrupting, you know.
Yeah, and, you know, he had a very simple solution, and that was abortion. And that was something I'd never considered before, but it sounded easy. Yeah. It sounded like, you know, a viable solution. And so, you know, I don't really remember how much time went by. I honestly don't remember a whole lot about it. But that was the decision that we ultimately made.
Ultimately, you move into a role as director of a Planned Parenthood clinic. What were you, there are people, I'm sure, who explain to you what the organization's about and where it's going and what its purpose is and its focus. What were you told was supposed to be your first priority there?
I was told that our first priority was prevention, and prevention first. That was what our legislation was about. That's what our mission was about, always prevention. And I believed that, and I thought that that was a great goal, and it made sense to me. And that was what initially hooked me into Planned Parenthood, was that we were trying to decrease the number of abortions and trying to make abortion rare. And so I thought that sounded great.
I think that whole concept of feeling like knowledge is power works, except that we don't all live we don't all live, you know, lives that are focused and directed. You, as the director, had the ability to step into any role within the clinic that you wanted or needed to, but you had something happen to you that really turned your mind around in this. That was, I believe, in August of 2009. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was in September of 2009.
September.
I was asked to assist in an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure.
And you'd never done that before?
No, I'd never done that before. As you know, as far as I know, we had never had an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure take place in our clinic because they're very rare.
What causes one to use an ultrasound-guided abortion?
We had a visiting abortionist come to our facility that day.
I see.
And those are the types of procedures that he uses in his private practice facility.
So what happened?
Well, I was holding the probe on her abdomen so that we could visualize inside of the uterus. And I saw a 13-week-old baby in the womb. And what I saw during the abortion procedure was shocking because I saw that baby begin to move and recoil and tried to flee from the abortion instruments. And that was something that I didn't believe would happen because I had been told by Planned Parenthood for years. And I had then in turn told women when they had asked that their baby would not feel any pain, that there was no sensory development until 28 weeks, because that was what Planned Parenthood had told me. And I had believed that because I needed to believe it to continue to justify abortion and my work in abortion.
Yeah. So when you saw that, what happened inside of you? Tell me what went on in your head and your heart.
I was shocked. I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
I felt like I had been lied to by this organization that I believed in and had supported so strongly.
How did you get to the place where you decided to walk?
I knew that, you know, after seeing that abortion, I was going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't walk out of that room and continue to live the way I'd been living. I knew that that was going to have to be a turning point in my life. And I knew that ultimately the decision was going to have to be that I would leave Planned Parenthood.
So not only did you leave, but you went to work for the other side, sharing with people the significance of life and the truth of what you had seen. Planned Parenthood wasn't happy with that. Tell me what happened after that.
Yeah, I did contact the coalition. I needed help finding a job. I needed help sorting through my emotions, and they had always said they would help, and so I put them to the test, and they did help me tremendously. And but when Planned Parenthood found out about this, they took me to court, and they actually released my story to the media. And we did go to court, but, you know, you can't sue somebody for being pro-life. And they had no grounds, and so the case was dismissed. You
say, Abby, that, in fact, the pro-choice, pro-life people have a lot more in common than any of us understand. What do you mean by that?
Well, they are both well-intentioned. Yeah. And a lot of times we want to see the workers as the enemy. We want to see clinic workers as the enemy. But what we need to understand is that they are not the enemy. The sin of abortion is the enemy. And sometimes our anger and our hostility is misdirected. But their goal, a lot of times, is the same as ours. They want to help women just like we do. It's just that their goal is misdirected. And that's the situation that Abby Johnson found herself in. What an amazing journey you have taken. It's all chronicled here in her book called Unplanned. This is available wherever books are sold, and it's a compelling story and also helpful, I think, in understanding people who may have a different perspective on abortion than a lot of us do. Thank you so much, Abby, for your candor and for being with us today. It's great to have you here.